everyone, and welcome back to Decisive Squirrel Homestead. It is now January 10th, 9th, I think January 9th, and we have warmed up again. It's about 65 degrees outside right now. It's still morning. This is pretty normal for us. We had our big freeze. You can probably see behind me, the garden's not doing so hot. We went from about 80 degrees to 25 degrees all in one night. Plants didn't like that. But it's time for us to start on our spring garden. We are going to be starting seeds next week. We're gonna go inside a little bit and take a look at how we plan for the spring, but I thought I'd do a really quick update out here before we do that. So let's take a look. So you can see our broccoli here is looking pretty darn rough. I think we're gonna be pulling all of these out because it's about time to start putting onions and things like that in the garden anyway. You can probably see our Christmas lights in there where we tried to save things, but I think we just waited too long. We should have put those out before that first freeze hit, and we did not. So I'll probably go through here, pull most of these. I might keep a couple that are looking good, but the rest of those are probably going to come out this weekend. I've already pulled out the cauliflower that was here. It was in terrible shape. I was going to pull out all of these beets on the end, but some of them looked like they might still grow. I'm not sure if that's really going to work out or not. And then down here, cabbage is also looking really rough, but I could get the heads of cabbage out of there and still make something with those. Garlic's doing fine. It looks pretty happy. I think it's going to be okay. I was really hoping these Brussels sprouts were going to recover, but I don't think they are. They look really bad. So I don't think we're going to get anything. And that's basically how things are going out here. Like I said, it's time for us to get started on spring garden down here. So we'll be putting in onions really soon. We already have those starts that we're going to put in the ground. We put in some strawberry crowns today. We need to plant some mustard, and carrots can go in. So we're going to get started on all of that. And let's take a look at how we plan our spring garden. All right, it is the next day, the next evening actually, because that's just how things go. And it's a good time to sit down and talk about how we plan our spring garden. Now I know it's only not even quite mid-January yet, but for our zone, it's time for us to get started with all of our spring planting plans. So I thought I would go through how we do that, how we decide what we're going to plant, when we're going to plant it, how to stay organized so that things happen at the right time. Now, I'll be honest, the very first thing I did was go through the Baker Creek seed catalog and find all the cool things that I want to try this year, because who doesn't do that as soon as that catalog comes in the mail? But the next thing I did was make a list of goals that we have for the year. Now, there are a couple of cool things that I got for Christmas that are definitely playing a little bit of a part here. We've been using the Ball canning book for a long time, but I got the updated version, and there's some, cool new recipes in there that we're definitely going to be trying out. I was also really excited to get this pressure canning cookbook so that I can start trying to do some like meals in a jar and things like that. Along with that, I also got the weighted gauge pressure regulator for our pressure canner. It's getting really hard to get pressure canners tested, and you really should get the gauge tested once a year and make sure that it's reading the pressure correctly. The weighted gauge has weights that can come on and off and can be set for 5, 10, or 15 pounds, and that's a way for you to double check that you have the right pressure, even if your gauge isn't working quite right. So that's a useful addition. Hoping to do a lot more pressure canning. We do pressure can already, but we want to expand and do more meals and things like that. But some of the top things on my list were to make sure that we grow enough purple whole peas to can a bunch of them, because those are just really tasty. They're great gifts. Everybody around here loves them. Also, wax beans did really, really great for us last year, and we want to make sure that we can more of those. We didn't have enough onions this year. We want to make sure that we get those stored up. And then some other more general things, get more carrots so that we can store some of those. Try loofahs. We've never grown loofahs before. I want to give that a try. And I really want to make mustard. It's not all that useful, not going to save a ton of money. It's just a cool thing that I've never done before, that I want to grow mustard, collect the seed, and make mustard from it. Just for a new thing to do. So after I had my goals, that kind of gave me a direction. Obviously, we want our basic, what are we going to eat through the year? What are the normal things that we have? But what do we really want to focus on and make sure those things happen? So that helps me make sure that I save space for those things. The next thing I did was make a long list of all of the plants I was going to need. So this has everything I could think of as I was going through what we were going to plant. So every seed that we were going to start, every transplant or crown or start that we were going to buy at a store, herbs, flowers, everything. So I made a long list. I'm not sure if you can see it. And then next to each item, I put an S or a T or a C. That just says, do I need seed or do I need transplants? And then I kind of penciled in when those would get planted for our area. And then I checked our seed storage and put a little check mark if we already had seed for those things. If there's not a check mark, I need to make sure that I buy it. So that was just how I got the list together of here's everything that I need to get ready. And then the trick is figuring out, when do you plant it? When does everything go in the ground or get started indoors for seed? And I had a couple of resources for this. So the first one is our local ag extension office puts out a calendar that shows when you can plant each thing in our area. So it gives you a guideline based on what our last frost date is and what our first frost date is, and bases the planting on that. And they do change it regularly because those dates have changed over time. And that's a good basic starting point. I have been planting at the very early end of what they say because it's been so hot the last few years that I found planting at the very earliest part gives us time to really get a good crop before everything just gets too hot to maintain anymore. That also means that we generally have our produce first. So if we set up a little farm stand, we tend to do really well because other people don't have homegrown things yet. The other resource I use for figuring out when to plant is my notes from last year. And I did a pretty good job with this, better than I've done in the past, but there are some changes I want to make. So this is an example from last year. Again, I'm not sure if you can see it, but I listed out every day what we did. So if we started seed, I wrote down what seed we started, how many of them I started, and then when they transplanted into the garden, I made a note of when we transplanted them. Later on in the book, there's notes about how much we harvested and how much we canned. I kind of lost motivation with that as canning got really busy when we got to the point where we were pulling 30 pounds of tomatoes out of the garden and they needed to be canned right away. I stopped taking so many notes. I want to be better about taking notes this year, and I want to change how I do it. So instead of by date, I definitely want to make it by crop. So I want to have a page for Cherokee purple tomatoes and a page for Cal Wonder peppers, and that way within each specific plant, I know what day did I start the seed, what day did I transplant it, when did we start harvesting it, how much of it did we harvest, how much did we can. And that's been really, really useful to look back at this year because, for instance, I had a resource that said for starting tomatoes that you would want to start the seed and then they're going to go out to the garden at a certain time frame. I think it was 6 weeks after. Well, that's not what actually happened for us. So I don't know if it's something different that we do or the temperature of our house or the climate. I couldn't tell you the reason. But I can look back at my notes and I know the way that we start seed and our climate right here, it took however many weeks to go from seed to transplanting. And so I have a much more accurate guideline of how I need to plan things out. So once I had that, I took my list of everything that we were going to plant and what all of our goals are, and I did a rough outline of where things were going to go in the garden. So I just sketched out each bed that we have, where we're going to put everything. There's a few things where something will come out of the garden in time for something else to go in, and figured out how it was all going to get laid out. And when I knew how it was all going to be laid out, then I knew how much of it I could plant, how much space I had. And so then I took everything week by week. So again, I'm not sure if that'll show up, but I have a to-do list for every weekend basically. So we both have jobs. This is not our full-time job. This is something we do on the side to try to grow as much as we can. So most of our work gets done on the weekend. But basically I have a to-do list now that on a certain weekend I need to start specific things outside, start specific seeds inside, transplant other things that have already been growing for a while. And now I don't have to think of it every time that I do it, which is going to save me a lot of time, a lot of just grief of trying to reinvent the wheel every single weekend, of looking through everything and saying, what do I need? What should I be starting? Just guessing and starting too much and then trying to put it all into the garden, and things don't grow as well when they're too crowded. So this will keep us on track so that we know what needs to happen when, and we can just check off the to-do list. And if the weather changes or plants are ready to go out early or something like that, that's fine. We can adjust and then we'll just cross them out and we know that they're done. So this is really going to help save us time when things start getting really, really busy as they ramp up here. We did already start putting stuff outside just this weekend. Today's January 10th, so we started last weekend. We'll do a lot more next weekend, and then it just ramps up from there until about the end of March is when things start to slow down for us, and we have a little bit of a gap before we really start harvesting. And then May and June are extremely busy with harvesting and canning and all of that sort of thing. So this is going to keep us on track. Obviously, everyone does things a little bit differently, but maybe if you've been just grabbing seeds out of the seed bucket and putting them out whenever you want to, this will help you keep things organized also. And I hope you are enjoying planning your gardens. This is the best part of the winter, is sitting down and planning what's going to go in the garden in the spring and getting all the new seeds in, putting in the seed order. I did put in a significant order to Baker Creek, but I did also get a lot of seeds at our local co-op, but they just have so many cool things that we have to try. So I hope y'all are having fun, and we will see y'all later. Bye.